I appreciate that introduction. I'm not quite that cool a person, but I'll take it. I'll take anything at this age. I really, I liken getting ready for this presentation. When I got a text from Hannah, one of my former students, and said they would like for me to take on this responsibility. I started waking up in the middle of the night thinking about certain kind of things, and I was jotting things down and all that sort of thing. So I kind of likened it to a colonoscopy. I think some people out here have probably had a colonoscopy. The reason I say that is this morning I bounced out of bed really enthusiastic about 6:30, and I did so quickly my wife didn't have a chance to reach over to see if I was still warm, because that's one of our rituals we have every day is to do that. So, and then after you have a colonoscopy, you don't really know what happened. They give you this crazy stuff, and so I've read all this stuff and everything, and took all these notes. And just like after the colonoscopy, I don't remember anything that I've read or looked at. So we're just going to have to kind of wing it, I guess, today, if that's okay. This year was I did turn 80 this last month, and I didn't really. Turn doesn't sound like a really good word, but my wife wanted to give me a big party, and since when I retired, we went through the COVID thing, and we didn't really have a proper, party and that sort of thing, retirement party. And she was going to invite all my some former students and all that sort of thing. And I thought, well, it was around spring break, and I didn't want to impose on a lot of people that had their travels and that stuff. So I just said, let's just wait and do this when I'm 90. And so I think I think her response was, what if I'm not alive at 90, when you're 90, I got to thinking about that. Well, a lot of people that I'd be inviting probably may not be here 10 years from now, but I guess that's just the chance we'll all have to take. But we are pushing aging back. My presentation today will hope kind of set the stage for some of the other breakout sessions this afternoon. I'm happy to share the stage with our general. I'm a Vietnam veteran. My daughter works for the VA in the Nashville, and she would be here today, but she's out celebrating her birthday and is on a little trip. We have spoken together at some of the large training conferences for the VA together as a co-group. She, as an undergraduate here at MTSU, she did one of her practicums at the local VA, and then when she got her master's in Alabama, she actually did another practicum at the VA, and eventually worked her way into the VA and is now working with the homeless population. Before that, she actually started the family caregiving program for this region, and then she's, after 4 or 5 years, she moved over to the homeless population. I'm very proud of her as one of our former graduates, and kind of following somewhat in her father's footsteps. But with that said, we'll get started here in terms of kind of looking at this particular topic. One of the things that comes to mind, I think, when I think about this, Margaret Mead, one of our mothers of anthropology, I remember reading in one of my family classes. We were looking at intergenerational kinds of things, and she was talking about really the society she was looking at. It was younger people as they grew up. When they looked at their grandparents, they knew exactly what they would be doing. They looked at their grandparents and knew what their life was going to be like, because they would actually follow and do the same exact thing that their grandparents would be doing. If it was herding sheep or working the crops or whatever, when they got to the point where they were no longer productive, they would then basically take care of the children and the grandchildren and that sort of thing. So they had a big influence in that kind of society. And so then as we kind of go forward, the nuclear family became more prominent, and then And this was written in the 70s when she said that the children in their womb would be determining their future. And that was actually before we have the technology we have now, the computer in our pocket, or not even anything regarding AI, artificial intelligence, which is going to be probably 10 times more life-changing than our computer in our pocket in terms of. And so thinking about this, it's really where we are in terms of older people today. We haven't really lived, this long, and we're still, one of the reasons we're here today is thinking about what can we do with this couple of decades that we have left, to make a difference. So this is a kind of a tree of life, and you can take a look at that, and we know that old trees are really magnificent, and this just kind of represents really us as we age and as my mouth's getting dry. As we kind of go experience, think of all of those limbs as different pathways that we've taken. And we know that when you're looking at a young tree, it has few limbs, and the older we live, the more limbs and more experiences that we have, and the more wisdom we gather with that life experiences. So when you see a really old tree, that could be a smart tree, a tree that has a lot of wisdom. It's been through a lot of storms. Every life station that we go through, whether it's young adulthood, adolescence, adulthood, when we're trying to, make something out of ourselves, to senescence, and then to elderhood, all of those stations have certain challenges. Aging is not the first challenge that we get, because we have all of those others that we go through too. And so this is the oldest person that's ever been recorded. She outlived her husband, and she outlived she had one child and her grandchild, and she outlived all of those. And if you do your quick math, how old is this person? How long did she live? All right, somebody passed the cognitive test real quickly there. 122. And she was on Mediterranean diet. Later today, we will have someone, I think, will talk about the benefits of that diet, and we'll also be talking about the importance of nutrition. That's because most of the aging aspect really kind of starts with the brain. So yesterday, the oldest male died, and he was 114 or 115, I think. And then they were looking for the next person in line after him, and there was 214-year-olds, and one of them was in Japan, which is one of the blue zones, and then the other one I think was Argentina. And they were both born in the same year, but not the same month, and they have to go through this process of, basically documenting. And so when they were going through that process of documenting, the gentleman from Japan died that day. So the person in Argentina now is the oldest male. So we kind of keep up with that sort of thing in terms of, and I'm sure the blue zone will be. In that discussion, we'll talk about some of those things and the contributions that they make. So in terms of looking at this slide, how are you feeling today? Some days we feel better than others. That's kind of in reverse there. At the top of that, you see a tail wagging. And so that's what we hope today at the end of the day, everybody's tail will be wagging with optimism and with enthusiasm. And the other one there is actually the old bag. It's actually a bag that one of my former students, who's now in Adam's Place in assisted living, she was in my class and went on to get her master's degree at the University of North Texas, and her husband actually was a department chair at MTSU for a long time. And as well as her daughter was a chair here at MTSU. But she made this old bag because I would carry this around, and in it would be things that I would, for my students, I would have, glasses that I would put on and all that sort of thing. You kind of would become experiencing an older person. I'd have aluminum foil, that you put in your shoes and that sort of thing. And I don't need that anymore because I have those the pains in my feet come naturally, and I don't have to put the aluminum. But I want you to think about the old bag. When I taught my marriage and family class all the time, I'd always started out with, okay, you're going to get married, and here's a suitcase. What are you going to put in your suitcase that will last, that you need to make this marriage last forever? What kind of talents do you need? Of course, we know years ago, being able to cook, being able to wring a chicken's neck, a lot of things I think about in terms of the skills that you would need. What we call the tangible kind. What are the tangible kind of things and non-tangible? So I asked this question today: what is in your old bag? What have you put in your old bag? Those of you that are older, what is in it? What do you think you would need to experience positive or successful aging? And did anyone want to take a go at that in terms of what's in it, or what you would, if you were going to tell your grandchildren something, what would you say now that you've lived and have this wisdom that they should pack in their bag? Faith, okay. Patience, that comes up a lot. My wife would probably agree with that one. Yes, she would. Anything else that you... Purpose, yeah, sense of purpose. Humility. Knowledge. What about some tangible things? How about a retirement pension? How about money? Well, we know that most baby boomers are going to arrive at the finish line without any real cash to help them enjoy purposeful life or a positive experience, because that has a lot to do with it. Sometimes we talk about, the kind of things we'll talk about. But that's really important in terms of thinking about planning. No, none of us. I didn't plan to live to be 80. When I was growing up, at 65 was life expectancy. So that's the thing in terms of thinking about your old bag. Some of the things I would put in, do you have a positive aging attitude? How do you see aging? How do you see yourself? Never give up. That's right. Keep going forward. I would have some coupons in there for knee placement and hip placement, maybe. That might be something you want to. There's certain kind of things that some of those things we didn't have those things. See, this is all new. This is all new stuff. And they'll tell what AI is going to have. Maybe a robot as your friend in the future. That's what we're thinking, right? So think about that in terms of what's in your bag. What can you get today that would be a part of that you want to put in your bag? So hopefully will help fill up some of that bag, because typically what you might have for retirement, saving up for 65, and then you have another 20 years or so. So you have to add different things to our bag as life changes. And so we've talked about the importance of aging and those kind of things and why it's important. So, today, as we've talked about longevity, and that's really important, of course. The longer we live, the longer we live. If you're 65, 83, 84, and then you go to 90, then if you live to 83 or 84, you have a great chance to live to 92, and then you can add some more years to that. So we know that we're living longer in the sense and area. And one of the things I always ask in terms of, my classes too, in terms of why positive aging matters, and what role should we play in this process. And this is, taking ownership. It's hard to age positively in today's society. Corporations have been coming after us all of our lives, trying to get us addicted to processed foods, sugar, smoking, You know, they start with young children in terms of socializing them. It's hard to eat healthy when you have these kind of things, when you have these temptations that are out there. So, we talk about people, they battled, this person's battling cancer. That's what we're into. We're actually battling through, these life choices to live a positive life. And people always say that old cliche, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd take and better care of myself, So, but that's part of what I think we can do as a purpose, as an older population too, is to be a role model for our children and grandchildren, as well as others before us. We've talked about the science of the research, and Debbie mentioned some of these things, so I'm not going to go over those. But we know that now, for the first time, we've really had some remarkable research that's been done. The study in California with the retirement community, they had like 14,000 information on 14,000 individuals that were in this retirement community, and so they got a grant for $6 million, and they tried to contact all of those, and so they've had them in this study, so we know now a lot of things that we didn't know before about how we can be positive, and knowing just being our own thinking process, our mindset has so much to do with how long we can live. Just the mindset. And the mindset cost us zero. Like exercise is zero, didn't cost us anything. But we do struggle with those kind of things because of the society that we have and the kind of work that we do. It's not so much work oriented or exercise oriented. So those are things that we have discovered, and that we have to then, part of this transmission, or somebody said knowledge earlier in their bag. Very important to have knowledge. Attitude and knowledge are the things that come first before our behavior follows that. What are O people for? This was written by Dr. Thomas, which is a physician in Memphis that kind of revolutionized the nursing home industry in terms of making it more home-like and having pet plants and animals and that sort of thing there. And so we know that in agrarian society we've not always had negative attitudes toward older people. They were held in high esteem during the 17 and 1800s. Older people sat at the front of the church. They got to sit down in the front because the closer you were to the preacher, the closer you were to God. And so they were privileged. They were privileged. Children would dress like them. You wanted to be older. You look in the mirror and you see a gray hair. Oh, I got a gray hair. I'm getting, it was a positive thing rather than now when we get a gray hair, we want to start trying to pluck it out, right? We start trying to hide those things. So you see some of the terms, of course, that was used. And then as we had, the Industrial Revolution, we started this gerontophobia, kind of the fear kind of thing. And what we're trying to do, of course, is turn this train back around. We're trying to redefine what aging is to get back to where we had a more positive view of ourselves. We know that when you're looking at if I would ask, what do you think about old people? What do you think about the elderly? When you think of the elderly, what word comes to mind? And so the research that was done, Becca Levy, who actually went to Japan and spent some time there and has written several books in this area, and she looked at a cross-cultural kind of thing. And so what do you think most people in this country said when they thought about old people? What word do you think came to mind? The elderly. Well, no, it was memory loss, which would be the same, memory loss. So a lot of people, we saw aging just as senility or Alzheimer's and that sort of thing. What do you think they said in Japan? What word came to mind in Japan and a lot of other countries? Wisdom, exactly. They saw them as, as people of wisdom, because in Japan they still have a reverence for, a filial piety for older people. Ancestral worship. You actually reach your highest status when you're dead, and people are thinking about you after you're gone. So they celebrate. They have these days. They put them on billboards when people turn significant age. So they have a lot of respect for, and a lot of other Asian countries the same way. So we look at it more from a sickness, kind of a negative kind of attitude rather than a positive attitude, and that sometimes we internalize that ourselves. And that's the thing, when we internalize that, that's what affects our health. Cognitive, physical functioning, all of those are reduced when we have a negative attitude. So those are things that we're looking, and these are kind of the stereotypes that we have then of older people. And at the same time today, older people are living better than they have ever before. Living longer, healthier. The poverty rate is much lower than it was when I first started teaching. I was 30 years old when I started my first aging class. That was 50 years ago. It finally got to the point where I didn't really have to prepare for it. I just go in and talk about myself. So that was always, and I got tired of talking about myself. And maybe somebody else needs to teach this class. Thinking about kind of where we've been in the past, we have that sense of freedom today. I mean, in retirement, things we didn't have before. We have our mental health is actually better, gets better with age. Older people are happier than younger people. So in many ways, we have a lot, going for ourselves it's very positive, but sometimes we don't see it in a positive framework. We don't put it in perspective. In terms of thinking about, just in my childhood growing up and what we had to do in order to eke out a living, and where we are today. Our house burned when I was 5 years old. We didn't have anything. We didn't have any insurance or anything like that. So you have these various times. I mean, even when I was at Arkansas State, our house without any insurance was my first year I was teaching there, was totally demolished by a tornado. And while we were in it, and we were diving under beds and everything else, so it's and just fortunately that we lived through that, and again at another point in my life where we didn't really have anything as far as any kind of physical things that we think that we would strive for. So thinking about what older people are for, one of the questions, and I'm going to speed up here, but think about if we took all the people that are 90 years of age and rounded them up and threw them in the ocean, would be better off or worse off? What about all the 80-year-olds and over? Better off or worse off? Do we think that at some point in time that we're going to a bigger burden than we are a benefit to society? We're wrestling with that. One of the things that we could do when our previous speaker was talking about, I gave a keynote in Ohio on senior centers in the 21st century. One of the things that they do there is they actually tax soft drinks, like 2 or 3 cents. They get millions of dollars. And it all goes for the elderly programs in Ohio. And we tax cigarettes. If you just a small little tax, there's a lot of profit in soft drinks. A lot of profit. All it would take was just that little. And so they have a lot of different programs, home community-based programs that would just blows your mind in terms of the things that we need in the future in Tennessee going forward. We do have some problems, of course, we know with aging, issues. And so I don't know if anybody needs a break right now, but this is, we don't want to sugarcoat, it is, we do have struggles, we have issues, we have sickness, we have losses in our lives. I've lost family members, I've lost siblings because they didn't buy into positive aging as much as I would like for them to. And so we have those issues, but we have to continue to go forward and try to live with our inconveniences. And so this would be, one of the things, of course, that both men and women sometimes have to deal with. Okay, calm down. There's not any whistling. They're not whistling. They're wheezing. So sometimes that's. My dad was going into, during his last stages, he lived to be 87, and my grandfather lived to be 88, and both of them were big influences on my life. My grandfather he was running and that sort of thing, and he was always a big influence on me. After my grandmother died, he moved in with us, and we actually ended up sharing a bed for a time, and so he had so much wisdom, and he would always say, Ronnie, he'd call me, that was my name around at that time, Ronnie, and he would have a piece of wisdom to give me. But he always was very mindful of his health, and my father was the same way. So it's very important. I think when my father went into assisted living, I would fly over there, and every time he would have to be moved from one facility to the other, whatever, for various reasons. I was the one that had to do that particular part of that task. And I remember him walking in for the first time into the dining area of the assisted living, and some little old ladies were over there saying, "He looks pretty good," He was ambulatory, and they were starting. So they were pretty excited, and he was, and he did look good. He had a little bit of dementia, but he was. And of course, after my mother died, the people at church were chasing him around, and they had some of the women were actually calling. They were, calling others at the middle of the night, hanging up. They were prank calling and that sort of thing. He went out to the Walmart after church with one of the women, and another woman was out there, and she squealed her tires out there because she was jealous. So. If there's any older guys here, you're going to be in good shape. It's just in terms of positive aging, it's the women who's going to be out there, having to pick up the pieces. But I'm not sure my wife will. My wife's always more excited when I go back to Oklahoma and take care of family and that sort of thing. She's really excited when I'm leaving because she's got all these things planned, and she seems to be more excited when I leave than when I come back. But hopefully that will kind of take care of itself. I try to mind my manners as much as I can. So the question is, where do you live? Where do you live? Are you positive? Explorers. That's who we. No one's really been this far. People have lived a long time before, but not in the masses that we are now. Not in the masses that we are now. When you talk about Tennessee, for example, and its aging population, and as you look at globally, or even this country, and where we'll have by 2050, we'll have 82 million people over age 65. We haven't even started aging yet in our country. It hasn't even started. We're still having 10,000 people turning 65 every day, and the baby boomers don't get to. It's 2030, 5 more years before all the baby boomers reach 65. That's why it's going to be hard. It's so hard to age positively in terms of health care and that sort of thing. And how are you going to even? It's hard today to even get an appointment with a specialist. It's hard to even see a doctor today. And so that's why it's very important for us to take care of ourselves, really. So are you positive, embracing it? Are you in the practical room? Are you in the sick and tired, where you're just running out the clock. Some days I wake up and I think I may be down in number 3. I might feel that way, you know. I'm not really positive every day about aging. Sometimes things are hurting or whatever. We have these different kind of things. And so, but what we're trying to do today, of course, is we want to move more people up into the top category as possible. And part of that way, of course, is being positive ourselves and being role models for others, because we're in this together. We're in this together. Sometimes I feel like I'm on the final spin drive, down at the bottom there, you know. So when you reach 80, you really start looking at life a little bit differently, you know. I mean, you start thinking about, you know, do I need a new car? How, you know, you start engaging those things. When my dad used to do that, and I thought, well, he's thinking about, you know, so you start calculating in terms of what that your life is more limited, and so you have to. By that, you really have to, you know, make your priorities in terms of what you want to accomplish. So what we're looking at then is trying to the challenges of growing up and growing old, to learn how to do that, learn how to age positively. We spent a lot more time on thinking about growing up, but the socialization has not been there for the latter part of the life cycle, and what we call elderhood, which is kind of another concept that kind of grasps what we're talking about. So we need to embrace it, embrace our aging, embrace our experiences. Don't run away from it. Don't be fearful of it, but optimistic and joyful and humorous. We know that some of the people that have had near-death experiences, there's not a person that I know that have had a near-death experience in terms of where they you know, saw the light and that sort of thing, have come back and have any fears of dying. They look at a totally different life perspective. They have that inner peace. And there's one of the things that, intangible kind of things that you might want to have in your bag would be a peace of mind, an inner peace. More important than material kinds of things. Just feeling comfortable with where you are and with who you're with, and that would be yourself. Very important. One of my favorite books that I ran into and shared with my students for many decades was by Ashley Montague, another anthropologist on growing young. And he talked about the fact that we have all these neoteny traits of childhood that comes our way, that children have. Curiosity, creativity, the sense of humor, a sense of wonder, you know, optimism, you know, that children have. They are joyful about life. And he says what we need to do is not try to become old, but just take these traits with us. Take these traits with us. Keep your, you know, we know that our bodies get older, but our mind stays young. You know, the ageless self. The self doesn't age. It's just the thing that we're traveling in does age. And so that's very important in terms of engaging our brain, and doing new things actually helps our brain to continue to develop. So as I said there, a mind lift beats a facelift any day. You know, so think about that. Embracing elderhood, then, gratitude is very important. Being grateful for what we have. Be thankful as we travel this road of life. You know, being old is not a death sentence, but it's a life sentence. So be thankful that where we are in the roles that we're playing today, and continue to think about the riches that we've enjoyed. And during this process, begin to liberate yourself from these previous roles as you embrace elderhood, as you move from retirement into this particular period of your life to embrace it, and take on a new identity, because we are it's kind of think of it as a frontier, and we're on this pathway together, you know, traveling together as a convoy toward the finish line. We don't know when we're going to get there. We don't know at what point, you know, we're going to get the end of the road, but to try to take each day as positive as we can, and to take new adventures if we can, if we have the opportunity. I think youngsters need to start thinking about what kind of world they want to leave for me and Keith Richards. So Willie Nelson is 90 and he's still touring. Keith Richards is starting on a new tour as well, and he said he's about 2/3 broccoli because of what he's eating. So we see those people that are still out there, and here's a number of others, of course, that are still doing in their 90s and that sort of thing. And some are losing a little bit of their competency, but still there's, in many cases, still these aren't necessarily role models for us, but they are, because we want real role models, but these are people that are doing quite well and kind of things that we know that they're still embracing aging. And the thing that what this, when you look at those pictures, what Debbie, what things, it's purpose. They still have a purpose. Everybody. That's one of the things that in Japan they found that Levy found that getting up in the morning and have a sense of purpose was one of the most important things, intangible kind of things. Here's some other folks that are out there that are living it up. In the middle there's an older guy you might recognize. That was at my 60th reunion in high school, and the standing next to me is a former Marine and actually my sociology teacher in high school. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for his inspiration. How I got in his class was I got kicked out of shop actually with a couple of other semester the year before. Wasn't any fault on my mind. It's a long story. I won't go into it, but we had to either take 5 licks or get an F for the class. So a couple of us took an F for the class because what we ended up doing wasn't really our fault, but there was some laughter involved, and so the instructor thought it was. And so the only person that went back and took the 5 licks, his dad was a Baptist preacher. So anyway, Truman Dixon is a Hall of Fame basketball coach in Oklahoma. He just turned 98 a month or so ago, and I'm friends with his wife on Facebook. She's about 7 years younger, and so I got some pictures of him and with some of his family on Easter. So he's still going fishing and doing quite well. So he's a great role model. There's some other people that are having some fun there as well. Manage our stress and worries is very important. We know today with the digital climate out there, it's very, very difficult to keep from being overwhelmed by this information that we're receiving, where it's doubling every few years the amount of information and knowledge. So it creates a lot of anxiety for us, and so 85% of what people worry about on a daily basis never happens. So by living in the present moment, being able to meditate, being able to maybe turn off the television some. That's what they suggest. Watching all these things, the 24/7 that we had, where this constant stuff that's going on, and it's the world today is really kind of a state of flux. A lot of social change going on. Wherever continent you look at, there's certain challenges, and so that can be overwhelming. And so we have to think about that in terms of this digital kind of things that's giving us constant information. I get a note on how much time I've been on Facebook for the last week or something, and they're following us. You can even talk about something in our. Often we can just talk about some kind of something we might want to buy or something, and then we start getting these ads on both of our phones. You can't hide from this stuff. So it's one of the former coaches in North Carolina, he was talking about they gave him this office and he never to use his computer, so finally they came in and looked at it. He had like 20,000 emails. He just refused to deal with it. And maybe that's one of the things that we should do, just throw our computers away. I don't know. Some people have said you can either keep your phone or you can or sex. Which one would you give up? And a lot of people are choosing their phone. Finding a joyful pathway. This is all individualized. I don't know what makes you happy. You have to figure that out, right? But pleasure is always derived from something outside of you, and so pursue your passions. What do you feel passionate about? What can you do to help other people? What kind of leisure activities, hobbies? That's going to vary. Some people say, "I just want to be alone, and I want that rocking chair over there, and I want to read a book, and I want to, and that would be at peace at that. They don't care if they travel somewhere. Of course, a lot of times in people's bucket list are things that cost money. But you don't have to have those things that cost money, because it could be just a peace of mind could be on your bucket list. Think about what having a quieter everyday experience. Those things, making new friends is important. The last quote down there, being is more important than being important. Talk about memory. I heard that on television in the spring of 1981. I remember I was living in Murfreesboro, and this person was Hobo of the Year. I don't know why my brain recorded that, but being important is more important than being important. And what he was saying is just traveling around and kind of being a person, and just kind of being who you are and that sort of thing, was then trying to do all these other kind of things that we chase. And after all that chasing, it really comes down to ourselves and our friends that are really important than the money and the claims or the things that we might be noted for. So these are the most important things after the end. Should you have a bucket list? Should you have a bucket list? Some people say that, and the bucket list, of course, comes from the thing of kicking the bucket, right? Kicking the bucket means something we want to do before we die. Did anyone see the movie The Bucket List? So one of the things that they said, and when they were in Egypt, they said, what have you done to bring yourself joy? And what have you done to bring other people joy? That would be in terms of just thinking about, you want to go see this, you want to go see something else, or other kind of things. But sometimes it would be those small kind of things that really is what brings us joy and happiness. So we have to decide. Again, this is all individual. In terms of what our life experiences are going to be and what makes us happy. And so we shouldn't judge other people in terms of what, one of the things at the local senior center where they were at, they had a gentleman that was coming to the local senior center here, and they were asking me that. We have this gentleman that comes, and he comes in just that, but we can't get him up and do the line dancing, or he won't get any activities. And I said, well, is he coming regularly? Oh, yes, he comes all the time. I said, he's doing exactly what he wants to do. He's finding joy standing watching other people. 2 days before my dad died in this assisted living facility, they had him up engaging in some kind of activity. Birthday, he had a balloon on his whatever and all this stuff. He was already in the process of had a low-grade fever, and they came in and drug him out to do that. It's just we have to. Aging is individualistic. We're all in this. We're all in this. We're all together, and we need each other. But at the same time, we are individuals, and what we value may be very different. Conquering technology. How am I doing for time, by the way? Oh, good. I'm in good shape. I could have told a few more stories here. This is as we age, we can either cling to the world we shaped and refuse to engage in the new world that kids are creating, or we can adapt their world and remain curious. I don't know how we're going to, get away from the technology. I remember my dad when we started having the internet, and they were all these down at the bottom, all this stuff, the news, everything was. You can go to www.what.com, and my dad one day said, "What is this .com stuff?" And of course, that was something that he just, didn't understand. A lot of people didn't understand. But looking at technology, we know that smartphones are really conducive to helping us control disease. We can get a lot of quality information from that, certainly. And the social media plays a very important role, I think, in helping us remain connected with each other. During COVID, social media was a way that a lot of families stayed in touch with each other. So it's very important, but it can't really replace that face-to-face interaction. It's really important, I think. A lot of people during COVID started worshiping from home, and a lot of individuals are still worshiping from home. They're not going back to those face-to-face kind of interactions. And we know that working from home, my son works from home, and you're isolated, and so in some cases it's very good that you don't have to. It's great for me. I'm as teaching an adjunct this semester, and I can come in at 10 o'clock or so. I have a class right after lunch, and I can find a parking place about anywhere. Used to, you couldn't steal a parking place. People would be circling around looking for a parking place. Students would come in 10 or 15 minutes late, and where are you? Well, I was looking for a parking place. They were looking one for really close. They wouldn't have to walk. When I first started teaching at MTSU, you could actually go out for lunch. Go off campus for lunch with a group and come back and park in the same parking spot. So this has provided us with a lot of flexibility, but at the same time, it does have its barriers and has its pitfalls. So we have to think about those things. Children in 2010, when really the smartphone came into being, is when children started increasing their depression. And so we know that our young people today are in a lot of trouble when it comes to their identity and their self-esteem, and they're trying to gain it through their relationships, which aren't real relationships. So we have to I think be cautious about that and try to provide them with some reasoning and our knowledge and wisdom about those things, because they've never grown up without those things. They've grown up with them, so they don't understand that context. But so Elders in a New Digital World. I brought myself a senior GPS, but not only does it tell me how to get to my destination, but also why I wanted to go there. So that it can be helpful. I saw another a little cartoon the other day. It said, and I could have put it on here, but I'd already passed this over to Debbie. But it was like this older guy, and he had gotten to the pearly gates, and he had his little computer there. And they said, "I'm sorry, your password does not match your username." So, God, I chase those passwords around. I used to have everything in envelopes. Now I'm looking on my computer trying to find a folder or something like that. And what did I save it in? And my wife's very organized. She's an accountant, so she's got all these things in a book. And I just say, I can remember that. I can remember that. And so then I've gone through, all the different kind of things that I might remember, like a dog or something like that, and I think, well, did I use that there or not? So anyway, the one on the left, I didn't have permission to take that picture, but I did. That's at Cracker Barrel, but I thought it was amusing. It was last year. This person, she's in a wheelchair, of course, and looks like he's pushing 80 at least, and they're both on their phones. They're both on their phones. And that's pretty, and you don't sometimes see that with older folks. And I just told my wife that that's a classic picture right there. They're getting with it. They've been watching some teenagers or something, and they're on their smartphones. It seems like it gets a little bit too far for me when people are in the same room and they're texting each other. But that is New York University this fall started offering a class on how to make social connections, how to talk to each other. Can you imagine? And I believe it. I have my class this semester, they come in and it was just like I thought I walked into a funeral home. So the next time I went to class, I said, if people introduced each other, and they started introducing each other and chatting. I said, oh, I got them now. They're going to at least kind of build some chemistry together. I went in the next time, is the funeral home again. And they just look at you just with this blank stare on their face. And you don't really know if you're connecting or not. It's not, you get no impression. It's like they don't really know how to socially engage. And that's, one of the downsides of technology. We're going to have to figure that one out, because it's really very unhealthy, and you can't have positive aging in the future if our young people are struggling with those kind of things. You can imagine what a life of that's like. I mean, we had to adapt to that stuff, but they're living their whole life that way, in that sedentary. Well, we had a child play. Child play means as a child you went outside and played. Now the play is totally different. It's on your phone. They're playing there, sitting in a sedentary kind of fashion. So technology is one of the things. So we're the only ones that's live. To me, that's one of the purposes that maybe we can have as the older population, is trying to socialize and teach younger people, that hey, there is a life. There was a life before this, and to try to make some rules about putting these things away. That's one of the things in one of my last family classes I taught during COVID was looking at the role that phones are having on families and marriages, where they were spending all their time, even for dinner or going out to eat or anything like that. They were preoccupied with those things rather than with the people in their presence. Loneliness is a big problem that was already been mentioned, and it's considered an epidemic, and we really have to fight, again, to get through some of those issues. It's a problem that's been created. 50% of those 85 and older women are living alone. Women that are 75 and older only spend 8% of their time in conversation on a daily basis. That's about 50% less than the 65 and older. So what we're saying is that we have less face time with other people, where we actually can spend interacting in a social setting. And defining it, it's an inward feeling that we're unneeded, uncared for, or unnoticed. So it's again, the feeling that we're kind of out there on an island by ourselves. And so it is, when we have 1 in 4 older adults consider themselves very lonely, it's a big issue that and I know our Surgeon General has written a book about that and done a lot of studies, so it's been declared this way. You can have emotional loneliness or social loneliness. Oddly, 29% of married couples, they feel some loneliness there. It's going to be an emotional loneliness because they are with someone. They just don't feel connected. And my research on some of the women in prison, 45%, they expressed loneliness, although they were people all around them. So one of the things about dealing with that would be having someone that you have a significant relationship with. You can see what some of the risk factors are, of course, to becoming lonely, and the frequency of interactions, caregiving, all those kind of things, living alone. Finances, all those things, reduce mobility, create that kind of thing. So we have to really work hard, I think, to travel with companions. We need our tribe. We need our family and friends. We need a place where we can belong, where we feel anchored. That's where a lot of younger people sometimes may not have that, where we have that feeling of that we're part of a family or a system. One of the I recall a number of years ago a teenager that had attempted suicide, and if you drove by her house, it would be one would say, "I bet that's a happy family lives there." But she said, when they were in an interview, and she was saying, "I don't feel like I was a part of a family. Both of my parents had careers, and they were preoccupied with those careers in that adulthood when they were trying to be achievement-oriented. She had her own room, and she had all the technology and all that sort of thing that she needed." She said, "We never do anything as a family. We never go on a family picnic." And so she felt really disengaged from her family. They weren't really connected as a family, as a unit, that feeling of family, familism. So that's something that we need, and we don't ever get away from that. We don't ever get away from that. Whether we're in a nursing home or wherever, end of life, there's always a need to be loved. You have that need. So you can see that this recent study, that friendship is one of the most important things, even more than family. Because in many cases, we may not live close to our family anymore. Our family may be smaller, and that sort of thing. So we have, sometimes our friends become our main supporters. And a lot of older people, because we're living longer, we know that we're going to outlive our friends. As I said at my dad's funeral, that I took the responsibility of assuming that and preach his funeral along with my older sister. But I said, the longer you live, the smaller your funeral is going to be. And maybe we just like a graveside if we live long enough just for a graveside. So anyway, a lot of people are doing that. So I don't want if you just have a graveside for me. So, but we do outlive sometimes the people that we have to grieve. So we grieve their losses, and that's what always makes me mad. They died before I did, so now I've got to grieve them, and they don't get to grieve me. So I'm mad at them for a while. I'm mad at them for a while. My younger brother's supposed to take care of my middle sister, and so he died before she did. Now I'm taking. So you have. So I'm mad at him. So anyway, but. Our local senior center, this is taken from the local senior center and a research that I did. I was very depressed, lonesome, and miserable. I had no friends or family. I no longer suffer from my depression or loneliness. I found the senior center, and it saved my life. The friendships that what we found in those is not just coming to the senior center, but when they found those friendships, they started doing things outside the center together. They made connections. And those became where they felt responsible for each other. They checked on each other. And that was the network that started by reaching out. They had the courage to come to that senior center looking for that. And it makes a greater difference on those. The impact is much greater for people that are living alone than those that aren't, in terms of kind of overcoming those feelings. So, with a commitment, you can find a common bond with others, and you can overcome your feelings of loneliness. So the next few slides kind of address that issue. It's kind of outside the box, but everybody, the previous speaker talked about, getting involved with, intergenerational kind of things, where you have children talking to older people. The social contact hypothesis, very important in terms of getting to know other generations, and we're traveling in these convoys, and we have to travel with each other. So look for friends. You can find new friends if you're living into old age, and that's what we're talking about. Living this. If we live into our 90s, we're going to have to replace some of our old friends. So one way, of course, is the organizations. I'm just using it as illustrations. The Red Hat Society, and these people are out there having fun. There's a little lady there that said, I've reached old age, and but you can't shut me up. So she has an attitude, and we have to come into old age with an attitude. We have to be positive. Fight ageism. We have to fight ageism. We have to fight back and not accept the label, not internalize that. This is two unexpected companions. We all need a friend to lean on. What I'm talking about here is the animal species know what friendship means, and they'll look for it. Humans have to do the same thing. We can learn from them. That friend may look different, but we can find friends if we look for them and reach out and say, hey, I need a friend. Nothing like a kiss. One of my pieces on the research on food insecurity, one of the women said that she'd actually offer to buy other people lunch so she could have somebody to have companion with. Comfort and support to the very end. Motherly love. Lovebirds. Different politics, but still friends. This has become an issue, not talking to people that it's not the same political faith as us, even family members. So we can still be friends and find our friends there. And so it's very important, I think, in today's society that we polarized everything, including light beer. So I don't know what Bud Light. So I don't know. We've done about everything. These people met on Harmony.com, and they probably posted different pictures than what they really were when they showed up. And then you have the babysitting, and then the big daddy that's taking care of a large group, and then I'm adopted kind of thing, and then the odd couple. The dog can't. The dog didn't have the legs, and so that's his little tool there that keeps him going around. But that's really kind of interesting, I think, is how we're attracted to each other, and it's very. The point there is just the symbolic of how important it is to have that connection with someone, and so you do see that among the animal kingdom because they get lonely too. So the elder off-ramp, of course, we've been talking about is trying to find this balance, of not being so self-occupied and with life's past and worries, but be more selective of what we want to do. Have a plan, Think about our bag. Think about your old bag, what you need to put in it, what you need to do to be more positive, and decrease interest in unnecessary social interaction down there. I mean, you just kind of choose what you want to do. And somebody asked me if I was asked to teach another class in the fall, and I said nope. I've done my volunteer work for this year, and so we make those decisions in terms of what we want to do. Where can a single man over 65 find younger women? And they said in the bookstore under fiction. So you don't. This would be, when you get to the point where you don't want any more of that interaction, you just have to be positive and be strong. Final thoughts. Nobody can really go back and start a new beginning, but anyone can start today and make a new ending. And that's the key thing. You can start anywhere here. It's never too late to start. Dream as if you're going to live forever, and then live as if you will die tomorrow. Make each day count. Make it positive. Live all of your life. You live all of your life. The last 5 years can be just as important as the first 5. The last year can be just as important. You can make just the biggest influence. My father had a sense of humor and to the very end, trying to be positive and make an influence and be kind to other people. I saw more human growth in my father in the last 5 years than I did the first, 80-something in terms of growth. And that's part of positive aging is growing into old age because aging is living. So be a positive role model for generations following. Remember, the baby boomers are the trailblazers in charge of redefining old age, and you're to do your part. So the question I have is your tail wagging a little bit more now? Maybe. I don't know if it is or not. Do you got anything in your bag, find anything useful? Hopefully that as the day goes on, you will be able to kind of fill that bag up, and also the knowledge that you can part with other people. When we talk, what are old people for? What are old people for? What am I for? What's my challenge? What do I want? What's my destiny going to be like? What legacy do I want to leave? And how can I be the best role model for my family and that sort of thing? And so hopefully that would be one of the things that we're looking at is as we get more and more older people, it's going to be a burden to younger people, basically to manage and take care of us. The health cost is going to be immense. We haven't even, Medicare is already, we're already getting, the funding for all our health care is, so that's why we have to take care of ourselves and take care of our health. And just by having a positive attitude, we know that we can be healthier. And in that way, we're making it where that everybody, this large group of people, can live more comfortably. But as I see the future, we're in it together. Older people will have to help take care of each other, because there's not going to be enough nursing home beds. They're not going to build them. They're not going to have enough services out there for the group of people that's coming in terms of the graying of America. And we hopefully, by being more positive about this and remaining enthusiastic, that baby boomers and those can provide that great role model. And as I tell my students when they look at me and say, "What are you talking about? Old people to us?" Because it's what we do today, and how younger people. If younger people are ageist toward us, then they're gonna. That's the society they're gonna get. One quick, and I know so these cave dwelling people, when you no longer contribute, they were cave dwellers. They would take them, and when the older people got to the point where they were non-existent anymore, and they'd throw them off the cave, and they would plunder to their death, on the rocks, knowing all too well that when they got that same age, they would also be thrown over the cliff. So we have to think about that in terms of what we want to leave, what contribution we want to make, and to realize that there's other people following us, and we have to help prepare a place for them as well, so that they can take part in living a healthy life. Thank you very much, and for your attention, and for your patience, and all those kind of things.